Music is the language of the spirit. It opens the secret of life, bringing peace and abolishing strife. A very good morning to one and all present here. It's my absolute pleasure to extend a warm word of welcome to all of you. Today, I am blessed, privileged, and honored to welcome our chief guest for today's event, the living legend, the flute maestro, none other than Pandit Pravin Godhkindi, who needs no introduction. A hearty welcome to you, Panditji, to the show. I extend a warm word of welcome to our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Dr. K.N.B. Murthy, Pro Vice Chancellor, Shri R. Janardhan, and all the other dignitaries of the university. Panditji has always mesmerized us with his recitals, be it in some rags, Pahari, or old film music. I can't think of a better rendition of Rag Bhupali that you exposed us to while playing Pankh Hote Tu Ud Aati Re. It's a pure bliss listening to your renditions.
Thank you.
Today,
Thank you.
today, it is our extreme pleasure and privilege to have you here and listen from you about music in an engineer's life, a perspective which is not very often discussed. I am sure all our engineering students, as well as we faculties, we are excited to listen to you and we will learn a lot from you in this today's event. I welcome you, Panditji, once again.
Thank
Welcome.
you. Entirely my pleasure to be speaking to all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Now I'll hand over the mic to Akash Bagchi, a student of the CSA Department, School of Engineering, for conducting the event. Over to you, Akash.
Thank you, ma'am. It's my honor as well to be conducting this event here today. And good morning to everyone. Thanks for joining us. It's always great to be kicking off another event for the Music Club, and today's is truly one to remember. The Dayanand Sagar University School of Engineering's Music Club Melomanie, as you know us, is overjoyed to have the opportunity today to interact with renowned flute maestro, Pandit Pravin Godhkindi. Honestly, when Beshali ma'am first sent us this message actually in the group, asking for volunteers and help organizing this event, for a minute, I didn't believe my eyes. I thought perhaps it was an invite to an event in some other place or an independent webinar. And it was really hard to grasp the idea that Panditji is coming here to us to talk with us. And it's truly an honor. So thank you once again for being here.
Thank you.
Uh, I will try my best to introduce what is, in by no doubt, one of the greatest. So, having taken a liking to the flute at the age of just 3 and giving his first public performance at the age of just 6, his gurus included his father Pandit Venkatesh Godhkindi and Vidwaan Anoor Ananth Krishna Sharma, and they would nurture his talent into who is today a top-ranking artist in Hindustani Bansuri by Akashvani. Also, the first Indian to represent Bansuri at the World Flute Festival held at Argentina. He has received multiple national awards for films Beru and Vimukthi and is the brand ambassador for AKG microphones. The list of impressive achievements doesn't stop there, as Pandit Pravin Godhkindi is also the recipient of the ZMR Award for the Best Contemporary Instrumental Album in 2016 and has performed with some of the great maestros such as Ustad Zakir Hussain, Dr. Balmurali Krishna, Pandit Vishwa Mohan Bhatt, and many more. And he has achieved all of this while also holding a bachelor's degree in engineering, that is in electrical and electronics engineering, with distinction. It's truly baffling how one man can achieve so many things. And as such, Panditji is here today to give us his unique insight into the role of music in an engineer's life, something that may often be overlooked or downplayed. But as is clear in the case of Panditji, it can often lead to wonderful experiences. We at the Music Club also believe that the role of arts and cultural experiences, such as music, is essential in a fulfilling and memorable life. So we are beyond honored to be hosting this event. I like to mention before we go on that after Panditji's webinar or talk, we will have a 15-minute Q&A session. So please feel free and take this opportunity to post your questions in the chat box, and there will be we will try to go over as many as possible at the end. This is truly a once in a lifetime sort of opportunity, so do not miss the chance. Do leave all your comments in the chat box. And with no further ado, I'm sure we're all excited to hear from sir. I am as well. So over to you, sir.
Thank you, Akash. Thank you, everybody, and a warm welcome to all of you. Um, Music in an engineer's life is a very, very very interesting subject and very close to my heart, because I am both a musician as well as an uh, engineer by academic. Uh, Before I come into the nitty gritties of the subject, I would like to begin with few things related to music itself, especially flute, that being my main instrument. Um, there's a story that how the flute came into being. So the legend is that in this huge bamboo forests, when um, the woodpeckers would be pecking the bamboos and making tiny holes into it, and when the wind blew across the bamboo forest, there were whistling sounds. That was the moment when man decided that he can create an instrument out of it, and that was the first flute that nature gave to mankind. And from there on, there have been flutes in all different civilizations, and but mainly in India we use flutes that are made out of bamboos for classical music, whether it is Hindustani or Carnatic. You see flute artists preferring bamboo flutes. So when we say music in an engineer's life, with respect to the flute, there's a lot of engineering required, there's a lot of scientific approach required to prepare a good flute, right from cutting the bamboos, getting it, seasoning it. We actually get a bunch of bamboos in hundreds, and then put it on top of a stove. We heat so that the moisture is taken out, and we leave it like that for 15 days, sometimes even a month, depending on the weather. And then we pick it up to uh, prepare the flutes. So the diameter um, of the bamboo, the length which is required, and the natural nodes that are present between uh, the nodes, the distance between the two nodes, all that matters to prepare a good flute. So you this is one flute that I generally use. um, of course there's a lot of decoration because my wife is an artist too, so she does all this for me. But this is how it is. The diameter, it has to be round enough, and the thickness has to be uniform throughout. The diameter also has to be uniform and all that. So now we have measuring devices to measure the holes, to measure the thickness, to measure the uh, the quality of bamboo, how uniform it is and everything. But earlier, maybe 50 years, 60 years ago, when the only method was to drill a hole, bore a hole, and then keep trying. So that way we have come a long way. There's been a lot of development technologically in manufacturing flutes. um, so um, this flute, I mean, the flute that we see today has manifested and has evolved over time. But still, whatever the pictures that we see of Lord Krishna with the flute is quite similar to the one that we are using right now. So although we don't have evidences of what kind of music he used to play, but we definitely know that the number of holes was somewhere similar to what we have, like 6 holes or 7 holes, playing holes. So that is how, the flute. When I say Lord Krishna, it means around 5,000 years ago, this instrument was there. So the music was there. And so also the engineering was there. Because you see so many temples have these carvings of musicians with mridangam, um, with veenas, and so many other instruments. So there must have been engineers who skillfully developed that. So in a way, music and engineering go hand in hand. There's another aspect to it that some scientists have opined that music, a musician and an engineer, they both use the same part of the brain. So there's a lot of connection there. If you're a good engineer, then you can also become a good musician, and if you're a good musician, you can also become a good engineer, is what they mean. But how practically it is possible? Uh, there are a few examples of that also, like um, Shankar Mahadevanji. He's an engineer. Dr. S.P. Balasubramaniam was also enrolled into engineering. So uh, if we look at how they are closely knit, is the fact that both require the same amount of thinking, the logic, and the innovative ideas. So music and engineering are, uh, according to me, they are very close. It's it only thing is there is a lot of creativity involved in the music part. There is a lot of freedom a musician can take. Um, but having said that, when I was doing my engineering way back in 95, that's when I passed out. Um, we in fact were the first batch for the semester scheme. So it was a really demanding course back then, because every now and then you used to have internals, and then I'm sure it must be the same now. So it's a quite it keeps you quite busy with your studies. But the important fact is, if you are inclined towards music, you know if you have music in your genes, if you think you're good at identifying tunes, if you're able to hum them, if you're able to sing them, or if you're able to play some instrument, um, then you should develop that skill, because it helps a lot in concentrating in whatever you do. Even by listening to music, I have several of my students who come back and say, sir, I did my engineering, and throughout my career, I always used to listen to your music while preparing for my exams, and that really used to help me. Your music used to inspire me. It used to it helped me concentrate on the subjects that I did. So definitely music has that quality, that therapeutic value. It can heal. Music can heal, it can inspire, and it can nurture your uh, thoughts. It can calm you down. It's a very good stress buster. So and Indian classical music, especially Hindustani, has a lot of elements, like which raga should be sung at what time. The morning ragas are different, the afternoon ragas are different, the night ragas are different. And it is said that if you pick a raga appropriate to that time, so it will the impact will be much more. So if you just want to listen to music, understand the grammar behind it, and then listen, then you will be enjoying it much more. So these are certain things that are directly linked, to your behavior. um, the kind of music that you listen will leave a deep impact on how you react to situations. This is what I believe firmly in, because um, in the mornings, if when you wake up, if you listen to say a rag like Lalat or Bhairav, then it gives you an impetus. The whole day it gives you some energy, to move and concentrate and do your things better with a smile. But if you end up listening to some, very fast paced western, or some Bollywood song, although it might put some energy onto you, but you'll be more agitated the whole day. These are some things that have been found out after a lot of experimentation as pertaining to raga therapy. The more soothing and relaxed music you listen to, the more relaxed person you are. So that is one general message that I pass on to everybody, that at least, um, if you're listening to music, at least 25% of your content should be Indian classical music, because it really, really helps you. And although the general feeling is that Indian classical music is a tough nut to crack, it's hard to understand, very difficult to follow. I think it's not. I mean, if you just keep listening, you'll get hooked onto it, and then you'll be able to identify the swaras. You'll be able to understand what actually the artist is trying to convey, and all that. So if you are doing an engineering course, then listening to music not only helps you in these all these ways that I explained earlier, but it also brings out that inquisitiveness, that um, that um, the thought process of the trying to capture the essence of the raga, trying to capture what the musician is trying to convey, what are the emotions that he's trying to bring out. And so these are the aspects that will, you know uh, solidify your personality, your the way you think, the way you analyze. So that way, Indian classical music has a definite impact on an engineer's mind. Not only engineer, but even if you take as a science, any, because there's a lot of science in music also. There are a lot of shastras that we follow, a lot of rules. Simple example would be, if in a raga, they give us a framework, like the ascending note should be so many notes, and these are the only notes that you can take while ascending, and these are the only notes that you have to play while descending. So they are called arohana and avrohana. And then there are rules like only on certain notes you can sustain, other notes you are not supposed to sustain. So so to follow all these rules and then create melodies and impactful phrases and bring out the emotions requires a lot of thought process. That is where the creative part, as well as the scientific part, comes into play. Yeah. So the engine, once you are in in that mode of creating newer things, whether it's engineering or um, an artist, the aspect remains the same. You want to create something new, like so many startups, they come up with new ideas. So uh, it is always challenging and interesting how you can put across your thoughts, and not trying to bring something new that would be helpful to mankind. So in many ways, I feel that, we musicians, classical musicians, every concert of ours is a startup, because in every concert we try to create something new and try to share the benefits with the consumer. So although you have so much of information there, you pick and choose the information that is suitable for the general crowd, or the crowd that is listening to you that day, the audience, and then create a, a nice package, and offer it to them. Now, if you take my journey, I started when I was 3, and then throughout my childhood, my flute was my accompaniment, my friend. So it was always there. Even I used to carry to my school, in my bag, and I used to play it during my lunch break and all, to impress the teachers, and I get a few extra grace marks. Or later in colleges, I used to make it a point to play it in whenever there was an opportunity, to get a few grace marks in my internals. Uh, so, but the moment I became serious during my teens, when I kind of decided that I have to take up music seriously. Mind you, back then, my father, being a musician himself, was not very confident that you can just survive on music. So he wanted me to finish my degree first, and incidentally, I was good in. Um, I was good in academics as well. So he said, "Why don't you do engineering?" So that's how I enrolled myself into SDM Engineering College. And interestingly, um, Professor Arun Khannur was my lecturer in SDM College, Dharwad. So I'm one of his students. So that during that phase when I was in Dharwad, um, I got a lot of opportunities to perform as well as to listen. I listened to greats like Gangubai ji, Rajguru ji, whom my father was closely associated. So throughout my childhood, I used to listen to all these greats live, sitting right in front. Pandit Bhimsen Joshi ji, Mansoor ji. So all the legendary vocalists of India, who incidentally belong to Dharwad, my hometown. So I got an opportunity to listen to them, and that was the foundation when I tried to figure out how they, each one of them, tried to figure out what ragas were, how to present, and what were their ideas, how to create melodies out of thin air. So that was really really fascinating, and that hooked me on to Indian classical music. So I took up the challenge of creating newer uh, styles, newer you know ways of putting across things, and all throughout my childhood, during my teens, and even later, even today, I am fascinated to impress and get my audience hooked onto the music. So I have used my engineering skills to that effect also. You know, like um, I try to understand the PA system, the acoustics, even before actually understanding the scientific thing. I knew that my flute sound should sound like a particular, you know, um, in a particular way. The balance between the flute and the tabla should be in a particular way. So I was able to communicate to the sound guy that this is what I require. And once I learned about the frequencies, the bandwidth, the amplitude, and all those, then I was in a better position to exactly tell him what I need. And many a times, I used to jump out of the stage, go to the PA system, do the adjustments myself, come back and start performing. I do that even today because that is what I love, and I'm happy that I can afford to do that because I know the science behind the sound. So as I mentioned earlier, the manufacturing of flute, there also there's a lot of science involved, a lot of engineering involved, you know, because what happens is, see, if I play this is one note, for example. Now this, what we call a sa, uh, can change if you move the flute inwards, outwards, or if you blow harder, softer. So I, as a flutist, I have to understand which is the right position where the flute will actually resonate. It will give a beautiful sound where you get a good volume and where the pitch is right. So there are so many things that even without being an engineer also, the flutist thinks like a science student. What should be the temperature at which his flute will sound right. uh, if the temperature is low, then the pitch will also go low, so he'll have to position the flute accordingly so that it remains in the same pitch throughout. So if you're performing in an auditorium, we make slight adjustments to the pitch. If you're performing outside venue where there is a lot of wind, then you have to recalibrate your sa or the tonic note. So there are so many other things. So every musician has to become an engineer at some level, and one important thing about the flute is that it looks very simple, right? Just holes. And by the way, the holes that we drill in the bamboo is, we heat iron rods red hot and then pierce them, and we burn the bamboo to get these holes. So you can see some black marks inside, so that is the bamboo which is burnt. So as I said earlier, each bamboo behaves differently. Even if it is from the same stem, when you cut it at different positions, it tends to behave differently. So there's no way that you can get perfectly tuned two flutes. It's nearly impossible, because each bamboo has its own way of behaving, just like two human beings. Um, Even twins, they look alike, but they have certain uh, different behavioral aspects, right? So flute is also similar. So I generally say there are no strings attached, literally there are no strings attached, there's no leather, nothing. It's just pure bamboo. And so to control and get pitch perfect tunes is requires a lot of practice. And you have to have a good lung power, you have to develop a lot of um, you have to develop your capacity to hold your breath inside and then exhale it uniformly. So there's so many aspects to flute playing which involve engineering, not only manufacturing but even while performing. And then even on the stage, um, we nowadays we use a lot of especially I've been into a lot of gadgets and a lot of electronics things, and the software, um, I use a lot of software things to um, make my flute sound contemporary. So um, pertaining to that aspect of engineering, the sound engineering, there are a lot of options now. You can I was probably the first Indian to play an electric guitar on the bamboo flute. So um, these string instruments like sitar, sarod, violin, they have something called as pickups. They use uh, they use the resonance from the body of the instrument, and then it could be amplified, or it could be also converted into digital files, MIDI files, and then that can be used to trig any of the software or hardware instruments. There's something called as audio to MIDI. But for voice and for wind instruments, it is very difficult to convert it to digital. The analog to digital conversion is quite a task. So I spent a lot of time trying to research what would be the best way, and I spent a lot of money on that. I know I spent a lot of time with some engineers in US. A person in USA had developed a small homemade instrument that could convert his whistle into MIDI files, and thereby he used to play the piano. You could listen to the piano outside while he was whistling into the mic. So it could just detect the whistle. So I tried to use that technology, but it didn't work on the flute somehow. It only used to recognize the whistle. So then, after a lot of research, I finally found something um, that suited my instrument, and then now I can successfully play, electric guitar or a saxophone or a violin through my flute. So the video would be me playing the bamboo flute, but the audio that you listen will be of a electric rock guitar. And so I generally use them in my fusion concerts whenever I play for young crowds. They just go gaga. How can he do? It's like a magic. Or sometimes they say no, no, no. It's a recording that's being played and he's just acting. But I can. Uh, when they see me doing that again and again, then they realize no, 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 it's actually what he's doing. So stuff like that. Now the technology has moved leaps and bounds. So It's easy to do such things, even simply when earlier, when back in the 90s, just to get a plain delay, an echo of what you're playing, uh, was a was very difficult unless you had a very qualified person at the console. But now we have our own gadgets, we can fix our own reverbs, our own delays, and then just give them the output. But you have to know, depending on the size of the hall and what kind of music you're playing, so you have to choose those. So if you build an ear towards music, if you keep listening to different music, uh, from classical to uh, all kinds of music, then as engineers, some of you can focus only on the sound engineering part, because that's a very exciting and prospective um, stream. We need a lot of audio engineers. There's always a demand for sound engineers and technicians, because uh, why I say that you should listen to a lot of music is because you need to understand and listen to live music as well, because you need to understand how the instrument actually sounds without the microphones. That's when you'll know how to make it sound over the speakers. So I generally tell all my students who are entering into engineering, who have a passion for music, to try and develop this habit of listening to a tabla without the microphone. Just sit in front of it and listen to a good tabla player, and make a judgment of how the low frequencies are behaving and how the high frequencies are behaving with different instruments. Even in your small time bands that you have, try to make it a point to make sure that everybody sounds good and in equal measure outside. What we generally see is the keyboards or the guitars which are plugged directly to the mixer have generally overpower the sad vocalists or tabla players or the flutists, because their instruments are acoustic. So uh, so so to get a balance out of it, you actually have to understand the music, and then do some adjustments there. So that's one very interesting uh, area where you can which allows you not only to express. Engineers also have a great job, because once the music director composes a song, a singer sings, all the instruments have been played and everything is there in front of you, to make it impactful is an engineer's job. So he can decide which frequencies have to go down. If you don't need an instrument that has been played, just remove them, so that the voice comes in front, or at a particular point you want the rhythms to come and hit you. It should be impactful. So all those adjustments, it's very interesting and very exciting actually, to um, to balance these songs and this music. So music, um, nowadays, you listen to music over small devices. So that itself is a challenge for us. During this pandemic, I did a lot of online shows. So most of the people, 90% of them used to watch it on their mobiles. The mobiles are not designed to listen to stereophonic or high quality music. It's basically to talk. So not all mobiles support um, they are only loud, but the quality of music is not there. They cannot portray the low frequencies. So a bass flute doesn't sound that impactful on a mobile, but a smaller flute which is of higher frequency will be more impactful. So to how to make my bass flute, the lower bansuri, also be heard properly and make it leave an impact on the listener, posed a lot of challenges during the pandemic when we're doing online shows. So we had to do a lot of research to get it right. We used to broadcast it offline on our mobiles and check what to do and what frequencies to. So it has been exciting, this journey, being a musician as well as a engineer. So you know uh, see, when you say engineer, it's like fixed 2 plus 2 is equal to 4, right? But when I'm a musician, there 2 plus 2 is equal to 4, but it sometimes it can be 5 also, because I'm a creative person. I can, meander around the rules, I can. So that is the creative part, that's the abstract part of the art. So it's always uh, they go hand in hand, of course, but also quite challenging for me sometimes, where I should draw the line, that no, this is fine, I'll stick to this, um, mm, this part of the music where only the art gets prominence and not the um, science behind it. So when I did my fusion concerts, there were a lot of um, you know um, jugalbandis or collaborations that I did with Western musicians. I had to um, upgrade myself to understand how to um, be, equal in terms of technology and equal in terms of music. So learning music is one part, but then making it appeal to the audience is the other part. The science of promoting publicity and, science of communicating your skills is also another integral part of my journey. So I've done a lot of experiments, like what Vaishali ji mentioned about Pank Hote Udate Re. Till that point, Pank Hoti Udate Re was a song. It remained, it was there. Everybody enjoyed and all. But the moment I linked Rag Bhupali with this, I managed to get, two different section of crowds together. The people who used to enjoy only classical music and Bhupali, and the people who only knew about that song. So that way I increased my audience, and I did a lot of experiments. And then, because I'm passionate about newer things, especially connected to wind instruments, then I bought a 8 feet contrabass flute. I have to stand and play, and I was the first Indian to do that. And it there again, I could study the engineering in that, the construction. It was made in Amsterdam, and you close a hole somewhere here, and actually there's a connecting rod that closes the hole somewhere down 3 feet or 4 feet down there. And it's a magnificent instrument. Just to see that, it goes straight like this, it takes a turn and comes back like this. So you can check out some of my videos on the YouTube. So it's all exciting. Then I play the I invented actually something called as alto bansuri, which is a U-shaped flute. So if I have to play one octave below this, I cannot reach it because the fingers will go quite far, and then I have to strain my neck. My father tried doing it to a certain extent, but then I thought there should be some other way. So I used my engineering brains, and then I turned the bamboo like this, so with great difficulty. And so now I have that entire length, and then I have the holes also quite close to um, my body, so I don't have to do a lot of stretching. And then simultaneously I can reach to the lower notes, the bass notes. So that's one invention, you can say, that I did. And then recently I made an invention called Divya Bansuri, wherein that's the uh, probably India's first amplified electrified flute. So the microphone is inserted into the flute, just like you have an electric guitar or a keyboard, which has a jack inserted directly into the instrument, or electrified sitars, electrified violins. I wanted an electrified flute so that we don't have to struggle with the microphone and the sound. So I inserted the mic into the flute, and along with that, I also put some LEDs, which glow different colors. And right now I'm trying to get them to um, you know behave in a certain pattern, with respect to the music, the volume, or the or the raga or the mood. So right now we have developed a flute which has this inbuilt mic, and has some lights, and it glows when you're performing it. So it's a beautiful sight to watch. So these are some of the things that I could think of, and when they asked me to talk about music in an engineer's life. So it's been an interesting journey for me, trying to balance both classical traditional music, the contemporary fusion, that stuff that I do, the learning of various genres like Western classical, jazz, Carnatic, and also the engineering part of it, wherein I get to think like an engineer. This question always I'm asked by several engineers themselves, um, and I ask myself also, what would I have done if I had chosen engineering, to pursue engineering. Back then, during 95, when I came to Bangalore, I actually came in search of an engineering job, and I had a couple of offers in my hand before I got really busy into the recording industry, the film industry, and I started playing for a lot of film songs. So, and then I decided, no, 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 I'm going to stick to my music field. I wonder if I had taken up those jobs, I don't know, maybe I would have been um, in some company abroad, or I don't know where um, my fate would have taken me. But I'm really, really happy that I chose music to be my mainstay, as my profession, and here I am. So I hope you all enjoyed this talk. If you have any questions, you can go ahead and ask.
Thank you so much for that talk, sir. It was really wonderful. And as someone with an avid love for music myself, trying to like recently starting to put out my own music and also pursuing engineering myself, it was really heartwarming, I could say, to hear very similar perspectives from someone as renowned and accomplished as yourself. Because I believe a lot of us, if not all of us here today, because we are all bound by our love for music here in the music club, and that's why everyone here is watching. So I'm sure we all share a lot of the sentiments that you brought out about the link between engineering and music. And it was truly wonderful to hear from you and really enlightening as well. So, as your talk has been going on, we have been getting some really good questions. So, I'd like to bring forth some of the questions now to hear your answers. Sir. So, Sanjay Chitnis sir asks, is it possible to bring chords in Hindustani using the natural scale rather than the equal temperament scale, which is used in all Western music basically and is now the popularized form?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to actually understand the Indian scale, the 22 shrutis that we generally refer to, there's a very beautiful article and videos by one Mr. Aditya Vok, who plays on the harmonium, who has he has calibrated harmonium which can actually show you 22 shrutis. So when I think he has demonstrated the chord pertaining to that those shrutis. So if you choose Indian scales like the Shuddha Gandhar and Shuddha Nishad of what you hear from the Tanpura, probably, why probably, definitely they'll have a definite consonance. Unlike the tempered scale, where the Gandhar is higher than what it should be, because it is a tempered scale. They have made adjustments to the Shruti, and the 22 have been brought down to 12. So there won't be perfect uh, chord in any case in Western any of these instruments like the piano or the keyboard or whatever. But I think yes, in Hindustani music you definitely can. But depends on the raga and the depends on the shruti that you have chosen. Um, because as you must be aware that in Hindustani ragas, various ragas use various shrutis. The Komal Gandhar of Pilu is different from Komal Gandhar of say Darbari, for example, or the Komal Rishabh of Todi is different from Komal Rishabh of Marwa. So there are such slight, minor Ati Komal Rishabh is what sometimes we refer to it as. So in those cases, it might not be consonant, but otherwise, I'm sure if you use the same shrutis, you should be able to get the chords right.
On a similar note, Rishi Sood asked, a rag like Bhairav requires an Ati Komal re. So how do you manage to perfectly intonate to get such notes out of the flute, which aren't quantized in semitones, but microtones and further?
Yeah, this is something that I inadvertently demonstrated earlier. We have in the flute the option of, tilting the flute inwards to bring down the pitch. So we have various techniques. Either you can close the whole, instead of 50%, you can bring down the measure there, or you can always take the flute in and blow a little hard to get the right volume, but at the same time get the lower pitch. So that's how I do it. Whenever you want an andolan, for example, or an Ati Komal Rishabh, then Ati Komal Dhaivat. So that's how we do it. We balance it by taking the flute in and blowing a little harder.
Thank you for that, sir. So Beshali ma'am asked, there are various sizes of flutes. So could you please give us a short insight onto how those affect the pitch of the sound? Because as we know with other instruments such as the ukulele, you have one for concerts, one for a what's called a baritone ukulele, another a soprano. So how does it come into flutes?
See, the flute family, as I mentioned, in the contrabass it's like the grandfather, the great grandfather. Then you have the alto flute, which I developed, which gives the bass swaras, and this is the bansuri, which is generally used for classical music. And as we go, the smaller flutes, the difference is basically the pitch, the octave. The pitch might be the same, but the octave difference. I generally say this represents a male voice, this size of bamboo. The smaller one represents a female voice. Like if Kishorji and Lataji are singing, they're singing the same song in the same pitch, but Kishore Das voice will be one octave lower, and Lataji's octave will be higher. So it's similar. The smaller the flute, higher the pitch, and when the length is more, then the lower the pitch. That is basically how it is. But if tradition wise, Hindustani classical flutists always have been using this size for classical flute, whereas in Carnatic music, for a long time they used to use the smaller flute uh, for classical rendition also. But nowadays, of course, many Carnatic flutists are preferring to use longer flutes, uh, the bass flutes, to perform Carnatic music as well.
So, sir, Kiran sir asked what the difference is between a bansuri and just the overarching term flute, and also the difference between a wooden flute and a steel flute in terms of sound and purpose.
Bansuri is a Hindi term. You flute is an English term. There's nothing much, because in Kannada also we say Venu, Murli, Pilangovi, and there's so many different words. Uh, Bansi is also a word. So these are all basically different words for flute. But the difference between wooden flute, as in the bamboo flute, and the steel flute is that in the steel flute that you see in the Western classical music has got keys attached to it. So whereas we produce all the 12 notes, either closing the holes completely or partially, which requires a lot of practice to get that right shruti. So the semitones that someone was mentioning, the tones and the semitones, everything is produced in these 6 playing holes. Whereas in the steel flute, they have different keys. So you by using the combination of different fingers, you can produce different notes. That's how that flute is designed. So if you have practiced bamboo flute and suddenly you want to play on the key flute, it's not easy, because that's totally a different science. It requires a different finger technique. I cannot hear you.
Apologies for that, sir. So I'm sure Chandramoli, myself, and a lot of other people with the love of music and aspiring musicians here today have these questions. How do you stay motivated to practice music while doing engineering? Because they're both such taxing and such in-depth subjects.
Well, I casually mentioned during my talk that I used to listen to a lot of music. I used to perform also, and um, as you said, it is taxing. It's a quite task to manage both music and engineering. But then, I took inspiration from the sitar maestro legend, Pandit Budaditya Mukherjee. When I was in my 10th standard, I heard him first, and he became my inspiration. He became my idol because he was an exceptional sitar player. He still is wonderful sitar player. And back then he was already BE MTech gold medalist in metallurgy. So uh, that's when I thought, if he can do, I can do it as well. So that should be the motivation, I guess. If so many people can balance music and engineering, why can't you? It is difficult, it's but 24 hours in a day you definitely can manage. You'll have to train yourself to do that. Maybe you'll have to let go of some of the things that other people do. You'll have to sacrifice a few outings, a few weekends. You'll have to sit at home instead of going out and stuff like that, or spending time over the internet. uh, I think, yeah, it requires a lot of dedication, and a focus that I want to achieve. See, for me, what I did was, I set a goal for myself when I entered into my engineering. Back then, Akashvani used to give these, even now I think they do that. They have these competition for age group 16 to 24, and then they give you a grade, B grade for the first prize winner, national level competition. So I got first prize in that, and from then on, at that point I entered engineering. So my goal was, within those 8 semesters, I wanted to pass out engineering first time, first attempt, without any backlogs, and at least get first class. But then I passed out in distinction. But at the same time, I had another goal, that I should be A grade by the age of 21, 20 or 21. By the time I have my degree in my hand, I should also have an A grade in Hindustani classical music, because by then only my father was the only person who had an A grade in the entire South India. So all 4 states combined, there were no Hindustani flutists who had A grade. My father was the only one, and I became the second one, and I became the youngest. So that was my goal. So I concentrated only on those two aspects. That I should be able to finish my engineering with good marks, and then I should be uh, an A graded artist. But the later on, I became I'm happy, I'm grateful to God and my parents that I did that. When I left Dharwad with my engineering degree, I was already an A grade artist. And later on, 10 years later, I became the first Indian to be top ranking artist in the southern 4 states. Till now, there's no other a top or top ranking Hindustani artist, and I became one among the 4 5 who are leading flutists of India now. So if you set your goals right and start working towards it. Of course, I was fortunate because I had my father all along, as my guru, 24/7. So that helped me, and then that background, and it was in my genes, so it was much easier for me. But for you people, I think you need to have some motivation, and have set a goal for yourself, that you need to produce such a song, or produce an album, or you want to send tracks to a particular musician, get him to record on it and something like that, and work towards it. I'm sure you'll be able to. And the simplest thumb rule is, if he can do, I can do it as well.
That's very true, sir. Thank you for that. Sanjay sir has a great question. Teaching music in our tradition has a very well designed process in terms of Guru Sishya Parampara. So, is there anything from that aspect of musical education that you think we should adopt in engineering education?
That's an interesting question. Um, for one, I think there should be a lot of um, informal education also. Apart from the formal syllabus and um, the regular assignments and periodic evaluation that happens of a student in music. What happens is there's a lot of creative banter that happens between gurus and shishyas, and there's a lot of uh, tough questions that a student puts to the gurus with respect to ragas and with respect to performance. Even today I am grilled a lot by my son. I perform somewhere and then he asks, how could you do this? Is it allowed? Is it? Then I have to justify my creativity, what I did there. So that aspect brings out a lot of interest in the students. I think that is the way they get hooked onto. That should be an mm, not very um, I'm sure there might be a lot of debates happening in your institution and across the engineering fraternity, but I think it should be more open and more informal and more casual and um, more approachable. It should be like a lot of hand holding should happen, because that's when I think the students will feel a little more, they can express better, and they might get uh, they might evince interest in particular aspect of the engineering subject. So I think that might work. I don't know.
That's a great answer, sir. Thank you. Lastly, I know you've given us a lot of your precious time today, and we are deeply honored to have you here. A lot of us, the faculty and myself included, were wondering if you could perhaps play a short piece for us today.
Sure. Um, I'll play a rag called Hamsadvani, which is common in both Hindustani as well as Carnatic.
That was so beautiful, Panditji, and thank you so much for that. I was grinning ear to ear throughout the whole performance, and it gave me goosebumps really. And without a doubt, everyone shared the same sentiment. And I can
Thank
see
you.
Vaishali ma'am also absolutely gushing. So let me just add her.
It's so wonderful to hear you, sir. Today,
Thank you.
amazing, amazing. It's just mesmerizing. It's a bliss, always. It's a bliss for us to hear you. You know, it's too beautiful. Beautiful.
Thank you so much, Vaishali. Thank you.
So as we come to the end of this webinar, we are so grateful to have had you here. And from hearing about you talk about your interactions and your really the blessings that you had to be able to listen to the greats and learn from them, I think today we are blessed in the exact same way to be able to listen to you and learn from you. And it was a truly insightful talk. And we had some really good correlations between engineering and music, which I think not just for the musically inclined, but for everyone in terms of creative thinking and staying motivated, it will help them. So thank you for that. I
Thank
will
you.
now invite Dr. Kiran sir to give the vote of thanks. So,
Okay. Thank you, sir. It was a very nice webinar given by you. So actually, I don't want, this is a critical moment for me. I don't want to end the program, actually speaking, because we had really wonderfully, we want to still listen to your performance, your words. Really, it was like that. But we have to have an end, but I'm not calling it as an end. I'm putting a semicolon here. So we will still continue our journey from this. Okay,
Sure.
Honorable Chief Guest Pandit Pravin Godhkindi ji, Management Committee of Dayanand Sagar Institutions, Dean School of Engineering, faculty members, and my dear student friends, and everyone who are watching this live YouTube streaming. Okay, it's my privilege to propose a vote of thanks and acknowledge the contributions of those who have worked really hard to make this event a grand success. So before I started this particular event, I had a doubt like whether I will be looking a person like a musician as an engineer or an engineer as a musician. So I had this particular doubt. But after listening to your talk, we really came to know that music itself is engineering, music itself is science, music itself is medicine. So it is everything. So we should have everything. So many of us usually complain after joining engineering, we couldn't continue our passion like music, dance, drama, and all those things because of the stress that we'll be getting and all. But you are really an exception. So we know that you are very much busy with all your schedules and all. So with that also you have made some time and really ignited some students' thoughts in this direction of music and fine arts. Also, really you have given us an you have opened some research avenues for us also, that your talk was having those things also. Definitely, we will take up some of the components from this and we will try to work on it. As I am working on music therapy, as you said, music therapy. So I am working on music therapy. Definitely, we will be having some interaction with this also. So I'm really thankful to you, sir. I am very thankful to you for accepting our request and delivering a talk. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you so
Uh,
much. It's been my pleasure and a privilege to talk to all of you. Hope um, we have more such interactive sessions where and probably live in your campus so that I can interact directly with your
Yes,
students. Yeah. Thank you so
and
much.
certainly.
also, thank you,
We
sir.
look
And also,
forward for that one to have you
yes.
here. Yes, in the
So I
campus.
sincerely thank the management, DSI, Dean School of Engineering, Dr. A. Srinivas, for guiding and supporting us in organizing these kind of events, which will definitely help in overall personality development of an individual. And also, I thank Mr. Arun Kumar Khannur for requesting Pandit Pravin Godhkindi ji to be the resource person for this particular webinar on behalf of DSU. And also, I thank Professor Baishali for coordinating the event along with the Music Club of DSU. And even I thank the Master of Ceremony, Mr. Akash Bogachi, for organizing or hosting this particular event very nicely. Finally, I would like to thank all the chairpersons, faculty members, staff, spectators, and fan followers of Pandit ji for joining this live streaming in YouTube. Also, I thank all the people who are directly or indirectly has helped us involved in the success of this particular event. Thank you, one and all. Have a great day.
Thank you.